and others are feeding them to us.
Sounds good.
All right. Here we are going live for the next session of the Suncast Summit. A focus on diversity and inclusive leadership is sorely lacking over the large trajectory of our clean energy business. And the folks on this panel aim to not only enlighten you about how many more women leaders are taking places in executive roles and making an impact in this industry, but are also challenging those of us organizing conferences, organizing public events to elevate those thought leaders into positions of influence in the public stage. So I am so grateful for those who are going to join us here today. And in one moment, I will have them all here on the stage with us. If you're joining us in LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube or even Periscope Twitter, then thank you for joining us. You probably were notified that this is a live event that's going on right now. And if you're joining us on Crowdcast, thank you as well, because you have registered for this event and you're well aware of the agenda that we have ongoing. All right, I'm going to pull down the cover here. Who am I? My name is Nico Johnson. I am the founder and host of Suncast. That right there is my friend Glenda Johnson. Glenda, I'll hit unmute here for you, so you don't have to fiddle with that. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you. I feel like the last time we hung out was in Salt Lake City. For those who follow the Solar Power Events social channels, then you would have caught, hopefully, Glenda and I doing a live every morning from the trade show floor at North America Smart Energy Week. That was probably the most fun I've had. Johnson & Johnson. It's just a total coincidence, but we are cousins.
We look very much alike.
Somewhere. Yes, somewhere along the line. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of diversity in my lineage, but and that is why for this panel I've invited Glenda to man the helm. So instead of me, Nico, the host of Suncast, running this session, I'm going to hand it off to my cousin from another genealogical tree and have Glenda Johnson run the show. Glenda is the senior marketing manager at Solar Power Events, and she manages the immersive experience in the social realms that you all probably have had a chance to enjoy. If you are seeing anything posted on Facebook, Twitter, wherever it happens to be, chances are it's passed across her desk or at least had her influence. Glenda is an up-and-coming leader, thought leader for sure, in our industry. And with that, Glenda, I'm going to hand it off to you. I'm going to bring our esteemed panel into the room, and in the meantime, why don't you go ahead and take the lead and tell us more about the panel today.
Sounds great. Thank you, Nico. I'll have to use the immersive experience when I explain my job now moving forward. So thank you, Nico, and also the Suncast team for putting this incredible Earth Day event together, and also bringing together this really esteemed panel of executives from the entire industry. I'm happy to introduce Amanda Bybee, Chief Executive Officer of Amicus O&M and Cooperative, Tara Doyle, Chief Commercial Officer of PV Evolution Labs, and Karina Witham, President of Witham Group. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Welcome to the session. I'm very excited. I'm happy that we were able to touch base yesterday, and we had a long conversation that ended up being over an hour, I think. So I'm excited to talk about what we have in front of us, diversity and inclusion. As we're all stuck at home, safely at our home, joining from all parts of the United States and probably different parts of the country. Let's get rolling here and talk a little bit about your companies, where you're based from, and some of the diversity and inclusion initiatives that you're making as a corporate priority. And I'll start by going clockwise with Amanda Bybee, and then we can go to Tara and then Karina.
Great. Thanks, Glenda. So I'm the CEO of the Amicus Operations and Maintenance Cooperative, which has about 25 member companies all over the United States who perform operations and maintenance field services. And in my prior career, I was at Namaste Solar, which is an EPC based in Colorado. I myself am in Colorado today. Interesting looking at operations and maintenance, because like a lot of the aspects of our industry, that's still pretty heavily male oriented. But where we do start to see more diversity and particularly in bringing in more women is in the operational side of it and the management side of it. And so it's always interesting to me looking at the makeup of our monthly phone calls, for example. I would say we get about a third, maybe a quarter to a third of the folks who are in the office managing operations and maintenance work are women. I think it's still a struggle to find more women in construction and more female electricians. But I also want to give a shout to my alma mater, Namaste Solar, which has done a lot to foster diversity and inclusion within the organization. And they've been generous enough to continue to include me in some of these efforts. But Namaste Solar is an employee-owned cooperative and also a certified B Corp. And over the last year, they've had an organization-wide book club of sorts where we've read several interesting books on both gender diversity and racial diversity. And it's been a really interesting experience to go through that with an organization where it's an opt-in program, but we read books and then get together once a week or every other week to talk about the things that were brought into the readings. And I think that you see an increased awareness and people really feeling comfortable with sharing their personal experiences in that, and also a heightened awareness in how that infiltrates the hiring process. So I think just there's a lot to be said for companies that put a diligent effort into raising people's awareness around diversity and inclusion issues.
Tara Doyle. I'm with PV Evolution Labs, or PVEL for short. We are an independent test lab testing PV modules, inverters, energy storage, with the mission of providing this data to the downstream industry, the developers, asset owners, finance institutions, so that they can make better procurement choices. I have been on Suncast before, and I have to take this opportunity to give Nico a shout out. He has made a commitment publicly and continues to refer to his commitment to include more women on his show. And I think last I checked, he was in the 30s for stats, and regularly says it's still not enough, which I appreciate, and am very appreciative of this opportunity to continue this story and continue talking about the work that we're all doing to diversify speakers in our industry. As for my day job, PVEL also serves as a technical diligence advisor to the industry. We've got a pretty broad knowledge base across all of PV and storage products. And we constantly seek to improve the industry, improve PV products that are out there in the market, and make sure these systems are going to last for our children, and completely apropos to Earth Day, to accelerate the energy transition. So I personally at PVEL head up the commercial group. I have project management, business development, sales, and marketing under me. And it is an absolute priority for me and for us hiring managers at PVEL to review a diverse pool of applications whenever we're hiring. And sometimes that means, we're in a very technical field where we, have a lot of engineers and technicians among our team. And sometimes that means going out of our way to seek out applicants where we may not have a diverse enough pool. So looking to network with our partners and customers and asking for recommendations for people who may be a good fit for the job. At the end of the day, we hire the best person for the job, but I think it's really important in that hiring process to make sure you have a broad selection of applicants and diverse selection as well. So we try to do that. In my group, half of my team is women, and I'm really proud of that. Separate to this conversation, we also prioritize hiring vets. So we're we try very hard to diversify our application pool, and something we're really proud of at PBEL.
Great. I'm Karina Woodham, and I am the president at Woodham Group Executive Search. It is a search firm focused on renewable energy recruitment. I've been in renewables for a decade, and our focus is diversity hiring. I think that there is a disconnect in the good intentions of leaders and true progress of closing in on the gender gap. But I think that to have a recruitment strategy that is inclusive of diversity, there's quite a few things I do with my clients. If they perhaps give me a job description and say, I'm looking for this kind of a person, and on that job description it says, we're looking for a ninja rock star warrior, I'll change the wording a little bit. It's a repellent for women. Those words just don't seem to gel with kind of, I don't think they put in when they're looking for a position, rock star or, warrior or anything like that. I also encourage my clients to continuously keep women in their pipeline. Another thing is, if you look at companies' LinkedIn pages, the ones that are very successful at integrating diversity are the companies that will on their Facebook or on their LinkedIn, show women in their company that are succeeding, and share stories of their success and encourage other women to be attracted to that company and want to apply there. So I think implementing these recruiting strategies can help leaders bring in more women today, and also set up their companies for success in attracting female candidates in the future. So.
Thank you. So I know you, Karina and Tara, touched on it a little bit already, but Karina, you have a unique perspective. You're coming from the side of the hiring process where you have the ability to share a different diverse representation of clients to those different clients of yours, so different candidates to those clients. How do you approach those different questions or different requests from clients in order to get that in front of the different clients and the different candidates in front of those clients of yours and everything?
Well, I do an extensive intake call with my clients. Anything from the culture, who the hiring manager is, who this person will report to, their personality. It's really a complex scenario. You think you're just taking notes, but I ask really intense questions, and sometimes the clients convey kind of an ideal. And what I do is I submit candidates that are qualified, but they're almost all diverse. And I think that even if the client didn't have that idea in mind of a specific candidate, I have been able to have a lot of women hired into powerful positions. And some of my clients, I would say the top three that really drive diversity hiring would be Brightmark Energy in San Francisco, led by Bob Powell, my friend, who used to be the president at SunEdison. Then we've got SunPower, where I work with all women leaders, high level, powerful women there who are absolutely amazing. And I'm forgetting the third one, which is terrible at this point. But so I'm seeing a lot of changes. I'm seeing a lot of companies realizing, hey, we've got to fix this, but they just don't know where to start. And that's where I come in and explain to them, even as simple as a job description. Let's change this. Or I've looked at your social media and it's lacking. Who is somebody who's been extremely successful? Do a little bio on her. But basically, to answer your question is, I get requests for different types of candidates, and I have the power to introduce the candidates that I feel are the best fit. And my retention ratios are extremely high. So in solar, average 5-6 years is huge, especially with how volatile solar has been in the past decade. I've seen companies come and go. I've seen recruiting firms come and go. It's a pretty competitive market. But the one thing that I have seen is that people in renewables we're all like from the same tribe. It's like a small village of people there's 1 degree of separation. So we all pretty much know each other or know somebody that knows somebody. But my strategy remains the same, and I introduce candidates that otherwise may not have wanted to participate, feeling that maybe not as qualified. And I explain to them, yes, you are. So it's been a successful strategy for me, and I'm lucky to be able to present these types of candidates to my clients.
I love that, the idea of a tribe, you saying that, a tribe. And Tara and Amanda, I know you guys have a different perspective when it comes to at least not the hiring process, but building a team on your end. What are your thoughts on that? The whole tribe, the different skills that come with hiring different females and a diverse set of candidates in your team. Can you talk about that? We'll start with Tara.
Yeah. So I took a note on that. I really liked how you talked about the tribe, and we all know that solar is an industry of networks. We all know each other, as you were saying, Karina. We all know each other. We know somebody who knows that person, and so when I was saying earlier about PVAL's policy on diverse hiring, and sometimes having to seek out qualified candidates for a certain job, we turn to our networks. I've been in solar for 17 years, and I'm not the only one. Amanda's got some years on her in solar too, and many other of us have been in the industry for a long time. We know a lot of people. We know a lot of people who know people. So when we're looking at, we're looking for a position, an engineer, for example, and we may have 1 or 2 among the application pool, and that's great. But we want to look at a lot, right? And it's really up to us as hiring managers to make sure that we're looking at a diverse application pool from which to choose. And oftentimes that means going out of our way to seek that diverse application pool. We also look to promote from within. I think that's also a really important part of a hiring process. Who do we already have at our company who has a skill set that we can push and we can encourage them to move forward? In my experience, women may not be as aggressive as men in terms of putting themselves out there and saying, I'm qualified, I can push myself, I know my skill set and I can do this, or I can, reach and do something different. I think we as women leaders need to also encourage that among our companies, among our entire staff base, but especially women who are typically a little less prone to, self-promotion. So it's important, and I know Amanda's got some thoughts on this too, so I'll turn it over to you, Amanda.
Thanks, Tara. Well, as you were talking, I was thinking so much about how the process of diversifying leadership, particularly in solar companies, is it really relies on this idea of nurturing talent, nurturing women, looking at those up and comers in your organization that you see so much potential in, and cultivating that so that they are ready to take that on. When you were talking about hiring from within, that's always been a real priority for Namaste Solar, and it's been really successful. And their most successful leaders have come from folks that started at more entry-level roles and then just proceeded to advance through the company. And I think about that a lot in terms of, when we look around the room and we see, we're at Solar Power International or what have you, and we look around the conference room, it's very noticeable to the naked eye how many men are in the room relative to women or people of color. It's pretty blindingly white a lot of the time. And I think that so much of you can't change who the founders were of these companies, right? Once they're founded, that's set in stone. But what we can change is who we invest our time and energy into. And I think to your point, there's a lot of research around how women tend to put themselves forward less for jobs that they don't feel 100% qualified for. Whereas men will have maybe 60% of the qualifications and be like, yeah, I'll learn the rest. And in my own career, I have naively stumbled into a lot of positions with that, I'll figure it out as I go kind of attitude. But I also recognize that that is not consistent with the research that we see in this space. And so when you have a combination of unconscious bias and hiring managers who are inadvertently looking for people who look like themselves or who have come up through a similar trajectory, combined with that reticence on the part of women in particular to hesitate or wait longer to put themselves forward for big positions, you end up with a pipeline of candidates that's not as diverse. And so I think that particularly for those of us who are in more executive roles, it's our job. Part of our job is to identify and cultivate that talent that's coming up and make sure that we're investing in people and helping them build the confidence to put themselves out there for job roles, even if they're not maybe at the moment 100% qualified.
And also, I would just add too, as part of that is really understanding your people and where they want to go. I try to make a point of checking in with my folks at least a couple times a year to say, are you where you want to be right now? And if not, where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in 2 years? And whether that's a role at PVAL or if I can use my network to help them be where they want to be elsewhere, I think it's really important in that process because we have an opportunity. We are executives at companies. We have influence, and we can and should and need to promote our people and those around us who are seeking employment opportunities and leadership roles.
Yeah, I think that needs to be added to the job descriptions of leadership. It should not just be your job to make sure that the work is getting. We have a responsibility to succession planning. We have a responsibility to continue advancing our industry. And this is a huge part of it. It's all those statistics that show that companies with diverse leadership perform better. Mm-hmm. And so it is not just your job to get the job done. It is your job to make sure the job can get done 10 years from now.
Exactly. And you guys take the same approach when it comes to both female representation and also the underrepresentation of minorities as well in the organizations as well, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, I'm the least diverse in my firm. So, and I would say 80% women on my team. So
that's great.
Yeah, they're great workers. I do have one thing. First, I did remember who my client was. 3 Degrees. Amazing, embracing diversity. Another thing I read, McKinsey & Company, it was a report that stated if women and men were promoted and hired to their first manager role at the same rate, 1 million more women would join the talent ranks of management in corporate America in the next 5 years. That's 1 million women if they were promoted at the same rate. So that would make a huge impact right there.
Awesome. And Amanda, you also could probably talk a little bit about female hiring and also retention, I think, right?
Yeah. So to me, particularly in my 11 years at Namaste Solar, where I feel like I got to exercise a lot more hiring and retention muscles, when you invest in your people, it creates a sense of loyalty to the company. And I think the other thing is that we often see, and this is true for women, people of color, and really for anybody, if you don't feel like there is opportunity to grow in your company, then you'll start to look for opportunities elsewhere. And I love what Tara said about understanding what someone's ambitions are and then helping them find that either within your organization or somewhere else. Because really, when you think about helping people move out of your company, there's a very counterintuitive aspect of, oh, but I don't want to lose them. I don't want to invest all this money, time, energy in helping build up someone's skill set only to lose them. But what I've come to see over the years is that what you're doing is that you're expanding your spheres of influence by investing in those people and then helping them move on in the world. And so folks that had left Namaste Solar are now in position to hire Namaste Solar and continue growing it that way from outside the organization, which is just a funny backwards way of thinking about it. But I offer that because I think making investments in your people is always the right answer. Even if they leave, that's not to say that that investment is lost. It may just take on a different caliber or a different form of impact on your company. And so that, I think about this so much that when people say, I can't find diverse candidates, I can't find diverse panelists for my conference, which is one of my soapboxes, so much of this is about creating the pipeline ourselves by choosing to invest time and energy in helping people grow into the roles that you ultimately want to see filled by diverse voices.
That's great. So in addition to changing the face of the workforce through building your team and through the hiring process, it's also as important to see that changing within the event space. We mentioned SPI, the conferences, and different panels that we attend. I pulled out a stat. I know in the last 2019 U.S. Solar Industry Report by Solar Foundation and SEIA, there's just 26% of women that make up the workforce. While I know, speaking from my perspective, that our team at SPI ESI and North America Smart Energy Week has been committed to creating a diverse set of events and panels within our events. I know we still have a lot to go. I could tell you that only 34% of the panelists were women in our at SPI ESI North America Smart Energy Week, which is actually a lot more than what's reflected in the industry. So we come up with the question with my favorite coined word, manels. We talk about it a lot. We talked about it yesterday, and I'm sure you guys have talked about it a lot in the past. Can you give your perspective on that and how we can approach that and try to correct what we see in these different events? And we can start with Karina.
Well, I have been asked to join panels and basically I would have been the only woman there. And that is sometimes too a little bit intimidating when you've got a panel of 10 and that there you are, the token female. It's a little bit tough to handle. And I don't know if I would say I was insulted because I'd be the token woman, but I approach people if they have some kind of an issue in my field that I feel is important. I'll reach out and tell them, listen, I have valuable information. I want to be a part of this. And I've never really ever been rejected. So I insert myself into panels when I feel like it is something important to me and something to further diversity. So.
Shoot over to Tara.
Yeah, sure. Well, so I think this is a good opportunity to talk about a little project that Amanda and I have been working on. Amanda and I first connected in the industry over a panel we were going to be on for an O&M conference. I ended up not being able to join due to a conflict, but Amanda and I kept in touch. And at SPI last year, we were, musing over just how incredibly non-diverse some of the panels were that we were in audience and watching, and just frustrated by that. And so we decided to do something about that. We created a very simple and easy to use solar speakers list where women can opt in, or women, men, diversity can opt in and list their skill set, where they're located, how far they're willing to travel. It's a very simple Google sheet. Our idea was to make this, stupidly accessible to conference organizers, to anybody putting on a panel, anybody looking for, even trade media, looking for a quote to just diversify their articles and, promote these women in leadership positions and women who would like to be in leadership positions. So we have, this morning I checked, we have about 150, a little less, women on this panel. So I'm super proud of that. And it's growing just the way we grow in our solar industry and as we grow in our positions through networks. So, you can get in touch with us, get in touch with Nico, and we'd be more than happy to share that list with you if you want to share it with your colleagues. And we have, we know that folks are using this list. I personally am using this list when we put together conferences and panels at PVAL. And I would say on that concept of tokenism, at this point in our industry, there is no reason why a woman should be a token on a panel. Absolutely no reason. We have so much talent in our industry across all our different sectors. We at PVAL work with technical experts at research institutions like NREL and UNSW. We work with really smart IEs and other technical folks in every single aspect of our industry. And so what I would say about that is that conference organizers need to work harder. They need to prioritize this, make it a first priority when they're putting together a panel, and seek out the talent that they're looking for in general. But there are plenty of women who can contribute to all these technical topics and topics in general. So there's no reason to have tokens.
No, I echo that 100%. And I appreciate, Glenda, you mentioning the level of attention that you pay to this issue, because that's really where it starts. Once you establish an awareness of, oh, here's the panel topic, I need to find 4 experts that can speak to this competently, and I want this stage to not just be white men, you will have no problem finding those people. And this has been a common complaint that I had heard from conference organizers was, yeah, we want diversity, we just don't know who to call. And so that was one of the reasons we created the list, is to take away that excuse. Oh, you don't know who to call? Well, here's a list of really qualified women and people of color that you can call. And I will confess, we've been more focused on women, I think, but the intention of that is to broaden it and make sure that we are promoting all the aspects of diversity. It's not just about women necessarily, but so if you're a conference organizer or a journalist or anybody who's putting together sessions, we're happy to share that list with you freely, as long as you put it not to spam us, because you have our
conference organizers, please don't call your nearest woman to get more women on the panel. It is also not our job to help you find more candidates for your panel. We can definitely point you in directions, but I get that a lot too. Conference organizer or somebody's looking for a woman and they contact their nearest woman and say, hey, who else can I have on here? So I think
we're all part of the secret network, Tara. So I mean,
I know we are, and I have those women in my mind, but at the same time, you've got to go expand your networks. You have to go do your diligence and find these people. It's not just up to the women to save these panels.
I agree. And I will definitely take that list. I will use it, pass it along to our education team. I think that working with SIA and SEPA, we've always made it a priority to make sure that our panels are diverse. And obviously, it's difficult with our industry, but using that type of resource as a place to look at, and also you ladies as well into the conversation. I think a big part of it is also being able to advocate for different speakers, like you mentioned. But it's not just on females advocating for each other, but it's also men advocating for females to speak on these panels. And I think one of the things that was important for me to see in some of the planning process for our events has been seeing some men point out some of their female colleagues who they thought would be a better person to represent the company. Have you guys experienced that as well? And you've probably done it yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm aware of people in the industry, and we'll talk about men for a second, who refuse to be on panels if there's no diversity. I love the concept, Glenda, of the men actually recommending a woman in their company who can speak instead. But at first refusing to be on panels that are all men or all white men. I think as a conference goer, if you see a panel full of men, you can reach out to the conference organizer too and challenge them to do better. You can be radical too and not go to that session, and make sure you give the feedback, though, otherwise your protest is lost in the noise. But give the feedback, I'm not going to attend this panel. I'm not going to attend this session. I'm not going to be on this panel unless you do a better job at having more diversity on that panel.
I think that makes a really loud impression. When you use your agency to say, this is important. I will not put myself into a self-promoting situation because this doesn't match my values. That I have to believe that message is heard loud and clear by conference organizers. And I definitely know men who have taken a pledge to that, who've just said, I'm sorry, I won't participate if this is the lineup. But Karina, did you have something else you wanted to offer?
Well, that can go into the business world as well. I'm luckily in the position where I get to choose clients to work with. I don't market. They come to me, and I do look at their executive team. And if it is all just a roster of, guys in their 60s and 50s that are all male C-level, I'm not interested in working for that kind of a company, because even if I try to bring diversity by their executive team with 10 men on the webpage, I'm not going to be able to change it. I could try, and I'll probe in that initial conversation, and I can tell how open they are. And so I will pass on the companies that are not open to diversity. And a lot of the companies, the large companies, they want to work with male executive search firms. And so I'm the only female-owned business at SPI every year that has a booth. No one else is there. They're dialing for dollars, where I'm building relationships. And so that's where my value comes in. But luckily, I am making a little bit of a difference. And I think that me presenting different types of candidates is waking people up a little bit, business owners, and they're seeing that, wow, you know what, she would fit great in this position. So
Definitely. Thank you for sharing. So we're coming up to the last few minutes, and I want to close it up with some sort of action item some of these attendees can take back with them. So what are some recommendations? I know you guys shared a ton of tidbits, but some recommendations on how we can amplify diversity and inclusion in this industry. And we could start with Tara.
Sure. Yeah. I got a little militant there, but I really do believe that, it takes this village. It takes our incredibly amazing and progressive industry, and we have all the tools. We have all the right people. We're already in an, alternative, becoming mainstream, thankfully, but an alternative industry. And we have some of the brightest minds out there and most progressive minds out there by design of our industry. I think if everybody gives just a little bit to this, we can make a humongous impact. Like we talked about, those very concrete ways where, conference organizers, trade media, they're really seeking out diversity among their articles they're writing, among, their organization of panels. I was really happy to see PV Magazine has started posting this job moves in solar. And last week, I don't know if this is a trend, but last week they focused that on women in solar and job moves. And actually, one of the women who moved jobs connected with her on LinkedIn over the past weekend. And now we're chatting. I sent her the speakers list. And just, really, that's, for me, that was one very small way that we can start to, amplify this issue and promote each other in the industry. And like I was saying before, refusing to be on panels, unless it's diverse, women and men can do that. Like a woman is selected for a panel. And like what Karina was saying, if she's the one woman among 10, she can say, yeah, I'll definitely participate in this, but you need to go find, X, Y, Z. Otherwise you lose your token. And so, and then same with men, refusing to be on panels, don't attend those sessions that are all men. These are very, very concrete things that any solar industry person can do tomorrow. And then the next time they attend an event, hopefully soon.
Yeah, I'll jump on that too. I think that there's a certain list of to-dos that you can, a position of leadership yourself. You can carve out budget to say, we're going to include some of our up and coming women and people of color in our conference attendees this year, because conferences is where people get to network and continue to develop their careers. So we're going to have, one or two seats that we're going to offer to not just top management, but the up and comers, so that we bring them along in this journey. And we're going to turn this into a mentorship opportunity. You can but even if you're not in a position of leadership, some of this stuff is just a matter of using your voice, communicating to the conference organizers. This is important to me. I know these conference sessions were all men. Maybe next time, could you please work to ensure that there's more diversity there? Another thing that you can do is, when you're in meetings, there was this great article that came out a number of years ago now about how women in the Obama administration would amplify each other's comments by saying, hey, Tara, you just made a great point there. I'd like to add to that with da, 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 da. And that by calling out when the women and people of color in the room are making great points, that doesn't get lost or misattributed to somebody else. And by doing so, you give credibility to those ideas. That is a super simple, subtle tactic that anyone can do in a meeting. And it's not just about increasing diversity, but increasing the sense of inclusion and honoring that good ideas come from all corners. That is why diversity helps our businesses be more successful, because we bring those various perspectives into our meetings. So calling that out, identifying it publicly, and helping give more recognition to those voices is another important part of making our organizations inclusive as we go.
And my final note on that, being a business owner, is note to companies: diversify your supply chain. Seek out a woman-owned business, especially a certified woman-owned business. I'm certified by the WBENC and the California Public Utility Commission as a diverse supplier. There's tax breaks for companies that use small businesses like mine. So I would say I'm not the best salesperson. I just tell the truth. I talk about my services and how high touch we are. I'm not a slick sales guy. But I think that if you consider outside of your current vendors that may be all male-owned companies, switch it up and see there's a difference. There's definitely a difference. So
Thank you, ladies, for such an incredible conversation. I'm going to actually bring back Nico so we can close it all up.
Thank you so much. That was phenomenal. I just want to say how honored I am that we can get this panel together. Each and every one of you has in some way shown light for our audience at Suncast and beyond to how we can stimulate, encourage both diverse gender as well as other forms of inclusion. I did want to make, I was making a few notes here as we were clipping along, and I don't know where, there they are. I wanted to highlight one quick thing. Kristen Graff, who is also a guest on the show and who runs the RISE, which is Women in Renewables, she was the first person, like Tara, Kristen was the first person to come to me and say, hey, Nico, you know what? I love what you're doing, but this whole solar warrior thing has got to go. Like, women don't really feel that attracted to the idea of warrior. So in honor of her request, and that was the one episode, I think, perhaps in all the 248 we've done so far where I didn't introduce it, Hey Solar Warrior. And so I just thank you so much to Tara in particular for challenging us a year ago when your first episode came out to have more focus on diversity and inclusion. It has made all the difference, and we really are intentional. To your point about not joining panels that are all sort of lopsided or all male. We recently ran a webinar where we insisted, because it was originally going to be all men, that we actually insisted and we changed the panel. So your influence is having an impact, and it's no small impact, especially from someone, as you put it, who is blindingly white. I try to get myself out of the way as often as possible. Isn't it amazing that when you put the mute on your phone and leave it across the room, it starts to ring 2 hours later? So I did want to mention as we part that the initiative that you guys have for curating this list of women leaders in the field that others can look to and invite to participate in activities is such a great initiative, and it's complemented as well by work that Kristen at Rise and that the folks at SIA are doing. And it's so encouraging to see that across our nation and indeed across the world, as Dr. Laura Stachel, who spoke in the last panel, talked about, we are seeing that not only is retention higher, but employee culture is better. And in fact, as we see with your friend and mine, the wonderful founder and CEO of Sunrun, Lynn Jurek, the results in many ways are better. Sunrun being one great example of a women-run company that is just crushing their peers from on all counts. So, with that, I just want to thank you so much. We are out of time here, but we've addressed a ton of questions. So grateful for those of you who joined us on LinkedIn and other social media platforms, and also for those who registered for the summit and joined us on Crowdcast. If you're interested in our other sessions, you can certainly check them out by going to suncastsummit.com. And these lovely ladies are also represented on our schedule and on that summit website, and you can certainly reach out to them. We will, I think we're going to link to their LinkedIn accounts, so definitely check that out. Next, we have a wonderful session with the folks from DEPCON and Solar Support that you won't want to miss. So we're going to jump over to that now, and I will thank you, ladies, so much. Really honored to have you on our first inaugural summit.